Well, cooking with wine, I mean, it's something that I do every day. I'm a wine country chef, recently opening a restaurant out there. Specifically cooking with wine, I think the opportunities to marry food and wine are very similar. I mean, you're talking about taking grapes from a vine, crushing them, and making a liquid with it. Very similar to something we do with food, whereas you're taking the best ingredients, treating them very simply, and then you're left with something that's pretty amazing. Cooking with wine. I do it every day in the kitchen, and today I'm going to show you a great sauce using red wine with fish. In this pot over here, we're going to start with some basic mirepoix vegetables, small dice. Mirepoix is carrots, onions, and celery. We're just going to saute that off in a little bit of butter. Then back over here, I have some fish heads. I'm quickly going to take the gills out. Taking the gills out is going to allow the stock not to be cloudy. I'm going to throw them right in the pot. I have two here with the gills, one here with the gill out already. I'm going to throw those in, and then I'm going to take the actual fish bodies, right like this. You don't have to chop it up. Just go right in the pot. Just like that. Then Rob's going to throw in the water here. Cover with cold water always. Cold water, if you use warm water, it's going to cloud the stock. So we're going to start with cold water. By starting with cold water, all the vegetables and the fish are going to cook at the same time, so we're going to be left with a clear broth. Next step I'm going to do is make a bouquet garni, which is a classic aromatic vegetable bunch. We're going to add parsley, some bay leaves inside a leek here, and we're going to add some peppercorns. We're going to tie it up quickly, and then we're going to toss it in the stock. Rob's added the water, cold water, as I said, and then I'm going to add a little bit of red wine. We're then going to simmer this gently. You don't want this to boil with the lid on for about 40 minutes. So what we're left with after that, oh, it smells wonderful, is this clear broth. When this clear broth is cooked for about 40 minutes, I'm going to strain it off into this pot through a fine mesh strainer here. We're going to add a little more wine. And then what we're left with is, we're going to reduce this down. We're left with this one over here. And after another about 20 minutes of reduction, we're going to be left with this really intense, flavorful red fumet. With that fumet, I'm then going to take that with a beautiful snapper I have here. I'm going to quickly score it just to help the cooking process on both sides. And we're going to sort of wet braise this whole in a casserole dish here. I'm going to add some aromatic herbs again. Thyme, basil, some cilantro. I'm going to put the fish right on top of that. And then I'm going to take my flavorful fumet, and I'm going to pour it right over top of the snapper. When that's cooking in the oven, the wine, the vegetables will sort of steam the fish a little bit. Take this over to the oven. And that's going to cook for about 20 minutes. At about 300 degrees. Well, if you're going to cook with wine, and you think you should always use the wine that you're going to drink with that specific dish. So, you know, obviously always try and use the best wine possible, and try and incorporate what you're drinking with what you're cooking with. So just try and use great wine. Drink great wine and cook with great wine. Next, I'm going to show you three simple techniques with cooking with wine. We're going to poach. First, I'm going to julienne some vegetables, which is one way to cut vegetables. We diced the vegetables in the first segment. Now we're going to julienne. So we've taken some celery. We're going to cut it in half. Just take off the skin. Follow the knife along. Hold the knife in the base of your hand like that. Have your fingers back, and then just slice through. Very simple. The julienne today is going to be used for a couple different things, but it's going to also be a little surprise at the end. So you can julienne pretty much anything. The carrots and celery are going to add to the finished dish for the salmon. So what we want is a consistent size vegetable so they all cook at the same time. I love to cook with wine in the kitchen because I only use wine that I want to drink. And if whenever you're cooking, you want to use the wine that you're going to drink with that dish. So we're going to add julienne veg right over there. We're going to continue to julienne a bit more carrots here. So that's it. That's julienning. Next, we're going to go over here, and we're going to demonstrate salmon medallions. I'm going to start with the salmon medallion here. That's just a salmon steak. I'm going to start by following the bones alongside the inside of the salmon. Watch this carefully because it's a neat technique. We do this a lot in the restaurant because at the end of the day, it's a nice round piece of salmon. Most people could fillet the fish, but I like to use a salmon medallion. The bones, all the pin bones have been taken out. So we've just followed the center bone along, cut through it like that. Follow the skin, cut off that piece, wrap it. And that's it. Little toothpick in the middle there, no problem. And then last but not least, tie the string. The string will just hold it together. You want the skin left on. The skin will also aid in holding the salmon together when you're cooking it. So that's that. And I'm going to show you one more quickly, just so you get the technique. Along with the salmon, we're making a court bouillon. We're going to poach in the court bouillon, which is a great way to cook with white wine. So we've started just with some water, a bouquet garni, and some white wine in this pot. Very simple, no seasoning, just a little bit of aromatic herbs, some parsley, some leeks, some peppercorns. Rob's going to bring that over to the other side for me. I'm going to bring my salmon along. We're going to add to a cold pan the julienne vegetables that we did earlier, just in the pan. These vegetables are going to add to the flavor of the broth. We're going to put the salmon right on top, and then Rob's going to pour the court bouillon around. Hot stock. You want to go hot stock so that everything starts to cook at the same time. This is a nice broth that'll add to the flavor of the salmon. You don't want to pour it all the way up. You want to go about halfway up the fish, and so you're sort of wet steaming the salmon almost, but all of these flavors will come together. It's going to be a beautiful flavored salmon. I love to poach salmon because it's a fatty fish, and you poach it with the skin on because then you can just peel it right off. So after about 8 minutes per inch, you're left with this. Oh wow, the flavors from the wine and the court bouillon, all of these vegetables are phenomenal. You can see the fats coming out of the salmon a little bit. That means it's perfectly cooked. As I said, about 8 minutes. So we're going to take the vegetables. The vegetables are used for two different things today. They're actually going to be part of the finished dish. We're going to just spread those around. Like that. We're then going to take the salmon right out, drain it off, put two right on the plate. It's a very simple dish. 8 minutes total, and we're almost going to be done. We then have a pot with nothing in it. We're going to add a little bit of the court bouillon to it with flavorful liquid. Smells wonderful. The wine, I love wine, white wine with fish. Just like that. We're going to take some soft cold butter here. We're going to whisk that in. This is called a nage. So you have your court bouillon, a little bit of butter, We're then going to add some fresh herbs, a little bit more seasoning. Rob, can you pour in some white wine into this, please? Just finish with a little bit of the wine that you started cooking with. It'll pick all the flavors up. A little bit of acidity will cut through some of the richness, the fattiness of the salmon. So that's that. We're then going to add some fresh basil, some fresh dill, whatever herbs you want to add, whatever herbs you have in your garden, a little bit of salt, and that's that. Right over top of the fish. Oh wow, that looks phenomenal. It's a great way to eat salmon with a nice brothy sauce like this. A little bit of butter for richness, but that's it. 8 minutes. Salmon à la nage. Smells great, eh?
Excellent.
Wine is a condiment. Well, wine, again, it's something that you should use more in your cooking. So whether you're finishing a soup with it, whether you're making a glaze for meat, whether you're poaching figs, whether you're, just steaming with wine, anything. I mean, condiments to me are just something that enhances a dish.
Yep. Look at these meats out of the oven, they should be finished. I'll take yours first. Excellent, I'll grab the beef. So next I'm going to talk about deglazing and reduction of wine. Two simple things that we do every day in the restaurant. And when I cook with wine, it's very important to deglaze and to reduce. The reduction of wine concentrates the flavors. The deglazing with wine gets all the little caramelized brown bits off the bottom of the pan, and that's what I want for my sauce. This is the pork pan, this is the beef pan. We're just going to push these aside, and I'm going to go over here and show you how to dice a shallot. These are shallots, but I'm going to show you with an onion. Onion's a little bit bigger. It's the same family. Shallot has a little bit more of a garlicky flavor. We use a ton of shallots in the restaurant. I'm going to show you with an onion first. So all I've done, the core is here. You can still see the core in the onion. I've sliced it in half. I'm going to lay it down like that, and I'm going to follow with my knife slowly, just so you can see, about half-inch intervals all the way through, like that. And then I'm going to make 2 cuts, one there, one there. And you can see already the pieces of the onion have sort of started to separate. And then I just follow through like this. And that's pretty simple. That's an onion. Now I'll do a shallot. Shallot, I've left the core in. You want to leave the center in because it holds it together when you're cutting it. Follow through like this, and the quicker you do it, the less chance you have of it getting into your eyes. I'm then going to put this just in this little bowl. Oops, make a little bit of a mess. And then go back to my pans over here. So I have my pork pan, my beef pan. I'm going to let the fat get hot. You want to leave the fat in there. I'm then going to add the shallots like that. Saute them off a little bit. You want to make the shallots a little bit translucent, a little bit tender, soften the veg up a bit. My meat's resting. Very important to rest your meat for almost as long as you've cooked it for. Let all the juices go back inside. I'm then going to take, for my beef, a little bit of red wine. For my pork, a little bit of rosé. So 2 quick sauces. It's exactly the same as I do in the restaurant. And I want to scrape off the bottom of the pan all those brown bits. Just like that. See all the brown bits in the sauce? Same with the beef. Scrape all off the bottom of the pan. Shallots are nice and cooked. Take my red wine. I'm going to use a Cabernet. Red wine with beef. Cabernet is a nice strong wine, and rosé's got a nice fruitiness. It'll go well with the pork. And then just pour it in. They'll both reduce down. See the nice color in there with the rosé and the shallots, all the brown bits. The brown bits are all the caramelized flavor. I love that. This is just the same as I do it in the restaurant. It's important to reduce it. You're intensifying the flavors. You're cooking off a little bit of the wine. So I'm going to let the pork go there. For my beef sauce, I'm gonna add a little bit of brandy, a little bit of beef stock, a little bit of brandy, just a little bit. Sort of deep caramelized rich brandy will add a lot of flavor to it. And then last but not least, a little bit of 35% cream. The 35% cream, you have to use a full fat cream. You can't use milk or a half and half, 10% cream, because it'll separate on you. The pork sauce, I'm gonna add a little bit more rosé, a little bit of butter. Butter's very important. Stir it around again. The butter will add to the richness and the depth. A little bit of salt, a little bit of fresh pepper. Then with the beef sauce, a little bit of salt, a little bit of fresh pepper, a little bit of butter. And last but not least, got to get some fresh thyme for the pork sauce, right in the pan. And for the beef sauce, a little bit of rosemary. Take it off the stem, bruise it a little bit. Just bruise it to get some of the natural oils out of the herb. And add that right in the sauce. And that's it. 2 simple sauces, just like we do in the restaurant.
Wine and herbs. Well, wine and herbs are, you know, the combination of the two when put together is phenomenal. Whether you're using a white wine and then like a lighter tarragon or chive, or you're using a deep red wine with a rustic rosemary or thyme or something like that, I think, you know, when you're tasting wine, you sometimes smell herbs or taste herbs. So, you know, if you're cooking with herbs, then there's just a natural correlation there.
So being a wine country chef, I love it. I get to cook with wine every day. I try and cook with great wine every day, obviously. And one of the best things about cooking with wine in Niagara as well is there's great produce out there. So when you combine the great produce with wine in lots of different ways, ends up with phenomenal results. Today I'm going to use some figs. We could get figs out where the restaurant is, but I'm actually going to use dried figs because for this purpose they're going to reduce in the wine. They're going to stay together a little bit more. These are wonderful dried mission figs. They're beautiful. You can still see some of the natural oils in the fig, actually. That's great. These are beautifully and sweet. So we're actually going to poach this. We reduced the wine before. We're going to reduce it even further for this segment. So we're going to take our figs, about a pound, right into a pot. We're going to add some aromatic spices. We have some cinnamon stick. We want to use the stick, not the spice, because it'll give it a little bit more depth and you won't have that grittiness of the spice. We're also going to add some star anise and some cloves. Star anise has a little bit of a licorice flavor. The cloves obviously like cloves. Not too much of each, but enough. We're then going to add some red wine. I've chosen a Merlot for this. We want to cover the figs all the way, just like that. And we're also going to add some honey for sweetness. So we're going to pour about half the amount of honey as we did wine. Cover that. Cook it for about an hour. When that's cooked down, what we're left with is a beautiful syrup. We're actually not quite there yet. It's still a little bit liquidy, but we want it to reduce even further. We want a glaze. Nice, sweet, rich glaze. You can see it's still a little bit liquidy, but we want to reduce it even further. So Rob's going to take the figs out of the liquid there. We're going to reduce the syrup down even further. And what we're left with here is our beautiful glaze. You can see it's really, really thick. It's bubbling up a little bit. The spices are still in there. I'll show you how thick it is. See? Nice, beautiful, thick glaze. Oh yeah, it's really intense. I get a little bit of the wine, a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of the tartness from the wine as it's cooked down, some of the spices. It's beautiful. You could use this for a lot of different things. What we're going to use it for today, we're actually going to take some of the figs here that Rob's had. Look at how beautiful they are. Poached in the red wine, beautiful color. You can smell them. They're amazing. Take a little crusty French bread, classic appetizer. This is great. I love this. Crusty French bread, a little bit of ricotta cheese, soft ricotta cheese. You could use cream cheese, mascarpone if you want. I've chosen ricotta for today. It'll go well with this. Some prosciutto on top. One of the figs. I'm going to get my syrup. Put that on top. See how it's just so rich and deep? Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. Chefing and sharing. Well, you know, whether you're sharing a glass of wine or whether you're creating something in the kitchen as a young chef, which I am, I like to surround myself with other young people that are inspired creatively. You know, we usually actually sit down at the end of service with a glass of wine and we sort of go over what we're going to do the next day. And, you know, 3 minds, 2 minds, whether it's my sous chef or my apprentices, you know, usually better than one, and we always come up with something great. And it's always over a glass of wine, so. Cheers. Thank you. Can't wait.
Thank you for having me.
Just like to invite everybody in to toast the prep staff from today. Come on in, guys. Couldn't have done it without them for sure. Have all the food out here displayed. Welcome. Come on in, grab a glass of wine. There you go. Oh, you already have one. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
To wine.
To wine. Taste everything here. We should pass all this around so we can enjoy it. Canadian wines. Do you guys drink Canadian wines very often? You want to taste some of this appetizer, the figs? Yeah? Enjoy. To food and wine.